Bismillah, salatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and Assalamu alaikum to everybody who's joining us here. I have a show tonight that I've been looking forward to for a long time because me being from the UK background, there are certain religions that we've met and certain religions that we haven't. Maybe people from America would have met somebody from a Native American religion, but we don't really know much about it. So it's a great pleasure to have Sister Valerie on board, Sister Mariam, and she's going to explain to us her journey, how she came into Islam, coming from a background which I understand is part Native American and part Christian. So I thank you a lot, sister, for coming, for accepting my invitation and coming online. If you can explain to us first and foremost, give us a little bit of a background first before we get into the actual subject itself. Give us a little bit of a background, and then we can move on from there.
Okay. Inshallah. I was actually born and raised in a state called South Dakota. My whole family was either Christian or Native American beliefs. So growing up with grandparents who studied the Old Testament, they really, really thought that it was better to not have pork in the house. So I grew up with a household with no pork, no bad stuff. My grandparents were very strict. And as I got older, I didn't even think about eating pork or anything or doing anything bad. I grew up with my grandparents as a guidance, and they always had this thing about telling us that we should never disrespect people, religion, ethnicity, anything different from us. So that's how we grew up, knowing that we were different, but also hearing the Native American side where you have the religious thing. And in there, it's like people always believed in the Native American religion that an eagle would always carry your prayers to, they would say, the hand of God. And, but people didn't really say God. They had a different name for him. And this is how you learn one
Sorry,
way and then you learn Christianity.
sorry to
So
interrupt
it
you there.
was,
Can you just clarify on something?
um,
So one side of your parents were actually from Jewish background because the fact of not eating pork or whatever. What part of Christianity were you? What sect of Christianity were you that you were not eating pork and you were reading the Old Testament? So were you from a more a Jewish Christianity, or
actually
can you
Presbyterian.
yeah.
My grandparents were Presbyterian, but they also brought us up into where they explained how we were denied a lot as Native Americans, where we weren't completely American until I think it was 1928. And we are actually citizens then, even though we were in the US before anybody came to the US. So basically, we had to earn our rights to be American, just like foreigners, even though we weren't foreigners. And it was just so different. And then they told us about boarding schools and how Christianity was kind of forced on them. Their language was taken away. They taught us all this, but at the same time, they were Presbyterian. My grandpa actually worked within the church. Him and my grandmother, they were both very active in the church. They studied more of the Old Testament, not the New Testament. They tried to encourage us to not do anything bad in growing up and being disrespectful children. I mean, we all had our flaws and fall downs at some point, but they were pretty tough on us. And we grew up learning our own culture, our own um, our own family, and we have
So
extended family.
The religion you were practicing was Christianity, but the culture was Native American. Then, am I right? Or
Yes,
so
you're
you
right.
were following American culture, not the actual religion itself. Yeah.
Yeah, the culture is different because also in that culture you have the Native American belief where the eagle, the bear, they tell you about your spirit animal, things like this, like your guardians, and they
When
believed a
you
lot in the spirit world.
Native American side, because like I said, somebody like me or maybe others from the UK or others from different parts of the world, maybe we don't know much about that culture. Although we know that it's a culture that's been we've had a lot of problems in the past, like you were just explaining. So if you can explain a bit how this spirituality goes in the Native American culture, and then how your parents, your Christianity together. Can you explain a bit more on the Native American religion side?
Yes, a lot of it, which is really, really, really interesting because they believed in a lot of the natural medicine, I would say, not just the natural medicine, but also fasting. We also fasted in the Native American belief, but
Oh,
instead of doing Ramadan like 30 days, they did it in 4. So it was 4 days, 3 nights, and it only happens in the summertime, and they have a certain time a year, but the dance that they have with it is called a sun dance. So that's very spiritual to us as natives. That, Sundance we really don't discuss because you're not allowed to.
mm-hmm.
So you kind of get an idea of how strict
We
the
see it in
family
the
was.
movies, and we see it in the movies. We see these things, but we don't actually know deep down how it is. So tell me something. In these Native American communities, you were living in like reserves, isn't it? Like with Native American people, or I mean, how was it basically? All your neighbors were Native American, or what?
Actually, I was born on a reservation. Um, Living on a reservation is different than living in like a bigger city or anything. Yes, poverty is very, very high there.
Yeah.
So a lot of people turn to drugs and alcohol sometimes. And there are some that still stick to the belief and strongly believe in the religion, the Native American religion itself. Some people don't realize how secretive we can be with some of our dances and some of the religious part because that's where we're supposed to be at. Nobody else is supposed to know exactly what we do. Um, like if you learn about, I think it's called the Wounded, basically the Wounded Knee Massacre was basically based upon a dance that was supposed to be shared. It's called the ghost dance. Now that is a very secretive dance, but dealing with that and hearing it from your family and how they were slaughtered at that time because they were trying to share it. Nobody knew that. But,
Mm.
hey, the army heard a gunshot. Next thing you know, they killed a bunch of women, children, and old people in that Wounded Knee massacre. So the dance and everything that we share is supposed to be kept secretive and private. Um, we know about it. Like we grew up being taught all this from the age of 5 all the way up until now. Even the language itself, it's a dying language, but some of us who remember it know how to speak it. There's like different dialects too in just the culture, the language, the religion. There's prayers that we offer too. I mean,
Do different
everything from
do
fasting,
different
there's like that
beliefs
hardcore
or
fasting.
sorry to cut you again there. Do different tribes have different beliefs, or do they have one belief from all the tribes? I mean, like for example, Cherokees and is it Sioux? How you pronounce it? I don't know. So different tribes. Do you have the same belief or? different beliefs?
We all have different beliefs, but we're all leading to one. Um, it is very different. A lot of us have our folklore to the leading to one. It At the end of the day, each tribe has a different way of using the religion. We have our own religion that was taught to us when we were little, and their parents, grandparents, great grandparents is just handed down through generations,
Yeah.
where other people don't realize that we are not the type of people who write things down. We are the verbal communicators where we keep it alive with just our words.
Oral tradition then. So you believe in oral tradition. Now, was it?
Yep.
Would you say monotheistic religion, or do you have a pantheon of gods? Because as far as I understand, you have the gods of the sea, the gods of the mountains and stuff like that. Is that true?
Yes and no. Mostly the thing that we always believed in is like they call the earth as in mother, because we basically are brought up from her, like the dirt and everything like that. And they say, oh, well, you're part of this. So the earth is like Mother Earth to us. Water is our bloodstream. The water is our bloodstream. So you contaminate that, it's like contaminating us because we drink from it. The sky above, that's where we believe that God is. There's a higher being for us too. Like me being Muslim, it was kind of like a challenge for a lot of things for me as a Muslim and being native, because some people, I was like, you have to respect a lot of things on this earth because God created it. That's how I looked at it, and that's how we were taught, that God created all the animals and everything to survive on. And people didn't think that being Native American, you didn't understand the meaning of God. Yes, we do. But we believed in that being a higher power than us.
Okay,
So having
so
to
being
have the understanding was a good
sorry,
thing.
So being Native American. Now let's move on to the Christianity. Now, like let's get back to how you're explaining your grandparents and everything. So you had that belief in God already in you from the Bible, so from the biblical side, and at the same time you had the Native American religion. So you were brought up with certain values and everything. Yeah. So at
Yeah.
what point now do you start feeling like that you start looking more into Christianity and thinking like these thoughts start I mean, when you start searching at what point?
I started questioning a lot in 2005, because at that time my kids' father um, had he despised Muslims and Islam and didn't like the religion. So for me, being open minded, I had to know why, what was wrong with the religion, because it was no different than being Buddhist or whatever belief you had. That should not be a problem. So why would you not like this? And so starting to learn about the religion itself was like, wow, it's so similar to not just the Native American belief, but wow, this is so close. And the brother who actually brought me to into reading the Quran and understanding it a little better, he was from Egypt, and he was a really good person who was very patient with me to help me understand it more. And he would send me part of the Quran and say, hey, you need to read this. And he's like, always, don't argue with me. If you have questions, just ask. And at first I was very argumentative. I'm not gonna lie. I was very argumentative, very standoffish with it, because I was brought up in another way. So it was just like, okay, I'm gonna be standoffish, I'm gonna be argumentative, but he just kept telling me, no, just calm down, learn about it before you start assuming. So I think the first one he sent to me was about Jesus. Actually, he told me to read that and take my time reading it. And I always felt that way. Like, I knew
Prior
I
to
felt that way, but I didn't want to admit that
yeah,
Jesus
prior to
wasn't.
that, did you, yeah, sorry to keep cutting you every time. Prior to that, did you have any knowledge of like what Islam was, what Islam believed in, and like what we believe in the prophets as well? Did you before you met that person, before he actually told you about Islam? Now you're going on a quest. Now you're searching about Islam. What was actually Islam for you before you met that person? Because you said to me, I think it was your
I
husband who actually hated Islam, right? So for
Right.
you now to search into that, what was your first perception? Because obviously being in the West, being in America, and like seeing Islam, maybe very few of your neighbors were Muslims, and like you didn't have access to Islam. So what was your first perception? And then this brother now bringing Islam to you and showing this is Islam. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Actually, I never knew about Islam before then. I have I have to be truthful on that. I didn't even know about Islam before that. I never even knew about Islam, but I knew about like Catholicism. I knew about being um the Christianity side where you have Episcopalian, you have Catholicism, you have all this, but you never knew about Islam. Never grew up knowing about Islam until that day. And it was like, I think it was like in April or something like that of 2005 or something like that is when I started learning about Islam, because at that time my ex's sister was marrying a Muslim and everybody hated him and I couldn't see why. It was like, oh well, it's this reason and that reason, and I just couldn't see why there was so much hate
Was
because
their
we were taught
reason?
not to
Their
hate.
reason for what was their reason for detesting him? I mean, what type of was he somebody who had some faults or whatever that they didn't understand, or was it just that hatred for Islam like they have today? A lot of the Christians who don't understand Islam just have a hatred for it, basically.
Well, a lot of it had to do with the fact that he was marrying the sister, and they say, oh, it's just a green card marriage.
Right.
And I mean, they were married for several years after, but still, people naturally assumed that it was a green card marriage, and this is why they got married, and this, all these other reasons. And it still didn't faze me because I had to understand the religion itself and why people even hated it, because there were a few even in my job at that time that didn't like Muslims either, and I couldn't still understand why, or why there was so much hate for it when there shouldn't be. Because like my grandfather would always tell me, hate is such a strong word. If you don't like something, you dislike it, but you cannot hold hate in your heart because that will just damage you. So that's how I looked at it. Like, you had to have that clean thought all the time. Like, you can't hate somebody for their beliefs. And
That's
that's how I
basically
still,
anything about. I mean, like I said, there's very little that people know about Islam, and yet there's so much hatred towards Islam. So this is why I'm asking you this specifically, because we know how much hatred there is for Islam, and most of the people who hate Islam don't know anything about it. I mean, I'm sure these people who hated Islam, your relatives or whatever, had not even picked up the Quran, had not even read about Islam, but they had this hatred in their hearts for it. So um, and you can see it today, especially in countries like. But I'm surprised that in a community that was so downtrodden as the Native American community, that there will be hatred for another religion when you yourselves you are being you're suffering and being downtrodden kind of thing.
well, a lot of times in the in the native community, we accept. a lot of things. Like when I had to break it to my family that I became Muslim, my uncle, now I know a lot of born Muslims think that this is wrong, or I've had reverts tell me, your uncle's wrong for saying it like that. But my uncle was a Presbyterian minister. And when I had to bring it to him, because like sitting down telling him, hey, I just wanted to let you know that I became Muslim in 2007, but I did take a step back for a little while because I had to be clear on my thoughts. But I retook my Shahada more clear, more thoughtful into what I was believing in and understanding more. I said it had to be myself too. And when telling him, I felt so scared. He was like my dad, you know, in our culture itself, we are taught that our uncles are like our dads, and our aunties are like our second moms. We have dads and moms. I said we have a very, very close community. So having to tell my family that I became Muslim, all of them said it's not about the religion, it's about our blood. Our blood is stronger, and you are our family, so that should matter more than the belief. So it was kind of interesting to be accepted by my family in a lot of ways, because I've heard so many revert stories about being family turning their backs on them sometimes, or just not wanting to deal with them. And I thought maybe I'm in a different situation because of the cultural side, because we were raised so close and so tight knit that whatever we became in our lives, we were always going to have family. So
Mhm.
it was a good feeling to know that my uncle didn't care. He actually took the time to read the Quran too, but he didn't revert, but he took the time to understand Islam in a better way than not just understanding Christianity.
Mhm.
So that was a beautiful thing to learn about my uncle.
Mhm.
So I am actually really content. Like I'll talk to my cousins and my close cousins or my distant cousins. They're still like my sisters and my brothers. They're not they're not like somebody to look for a marriage. No, they're like my brothers and sisters. Like everybody in my family, they're so tight knit that we feel that it's not a good thing to marry anybody close to us, because it will give us problems and all kinds of different health issues. So having to marry a close somebody that's close to us was still a bad thing. And yes, native in the religion and culture itself for Native Americans, we do have arranged marriages too, but we get married in a different way, because even in that way, the way they believe that they should get married is through wrapping a blanket around the female is almost like becoming that person's spouse. And we have a
Mhm.
different prayer, different everything for marriage too. But they choose somebody not of the same clan, I guess, would be the better way of putting it. If you traveled with a certain band, you couldn't marry within that band. But if the person's family traveled with another band, yes, you can get married. You may be like
So
twice or third time removed.
let's get back to the point now where you meet this Muslim now, and he's giving you all these verses of Quran, and you're resisting from one side, but at the same time you're kind of accepting it. Now explain to us now, if you can explain to us that journey, that journey to Islam now, how you are actually taking in these verses and maybe accepting some, not accepting, and resisting, but actually where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is starting to give you the guidance. Can we go through that now?
Yes. When I started getting into learning, I went to the masjid and actually picked up a little pamphlets, and when I found things in there, I would ask about it. And especially when it came to the word jihad, like I had that inner battle with religion and how I was brought up, and not just becoming Muslim, but having that battle of also being Native American. Now I still have that battle to this day. Like it's normal for me to be able to go through the jihad, and sometimes if I lose focus, I will turn to the brother who had guided me if I needed him. He would be there. I'd ask him questions like, I am so lost right now. I don't know if I'm going down the right path. And I said, especially if I have to say mashallah, inshallah, subhanallah, um, peace and blessings be upon him, anything like that, I would say out in public. I have lived in a lot of racist communities, so it's like you have to find that fine line to walk. And I said, if I don't say it out loud, doesn't mean I'm not thinking about it. And I've had a lot of, I had one born Muslim tell me I was so wrong for not saying it out loud. And I thought, no, I'm doing the right way right now, because where you live is kind of what defines what you have to do and how to live as a Muslim. And there are some places you cannot cover. And that journey is really, really tough, being Muslim and being Native and also passing for Hispanic. It's just like you're dealing with a lot, but nobody really sees it. Not even within the community. I've tried to live within a Muslim community, but it's farther than what I want, than I have to be, or I can't get close enough, or sometimes rent is too high. So you have to choose where you live and how much you can support. And if you're living by yourself, you have to support yourself, and you have to support children, your own kids. You have things to do that you have to find the time to go, okay, well, I've got to find that fine line as in a Muslim. What do I have to do? And coming home and finding your prayer rug and your Quran, or books that you help you study even more into Islam, and especially a book that I had gotten called The Ideal Muslimah. It was
Mm-hmm.
very, very helpful in a lot of ways, and understanding being a Muslim sister.
Right.
So it was
So
a
all this
big guidance for me.
all this was before you actually took Shahada now, yeah? So you're going on that journey, and you're reading, you're going to the masjid and picking up leaflets and whatever. So what is it now that is conflicting with what you believe? When you're looking into your religion now and you're looking into Islam and thinking, hey, hang on a minute, you know, what is it exactly now that's making you want to move? Now that brother has given you information, has given you verses of Quran. Another question I wanted to ask you was there anybody else in the reservation that you were living in that were actually Muslims, or maybe hiding their Islam, not letting anybody know, or were you the only one at the time who was Muslim, who was actually looking into Islam?
I was actually the only one, to be honest. I'm the only one in my family that's Muslim. I've My family, I just tell them, okay, I'm Muslim, and if you want to understand, just ask me questions. If I can't answer them, I will definitely send you to somebody who understands. And most of them choose to read the Quran, but they won't convert, but they do read it and do come back with a lot of good questions. And I try to answer them. And if I cannot, I will pass it on to an imam. But so far, I'm the only one in my family.
Right.
So
Okay. Okay. So
it's a
so
tough
so
battle.
let's go back to the journey again now. Like, where you're with this you're meeting up with this brother. He's giving you verses of Quran. You're reading. You're conflicting with some of them. Some of them you're accepting. Let's go back to that. And then now, how do make that leap now?
It was it was kind of like one of those ones where you get like this really clear thought, like, wow, I kind of suspected that, but you go through this, no, that can't be real, or this has got to be like a weird joke or something, because a part of me actually started a long time ago to believe that Jesus wasn't, the Son of God. That I started to believe a long time ago. Um, and then when he sent me that passage about Jesus, I was like, wow, okay, now I get it. Now I understand it. And little by little, it started to come together for me. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm starting to understand, believe. And April 2007 was my day that I walked into the masjid and took my shahada. But he said, no, 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 you can't take your shahada yet. You got to learn it in English before you take your shahada. I was like, I'm fluent in English and I can't even say it in English, but I knew it in Arabic. So it was like, whoa. He's like, I'd rather have you understand a little bit more about the shahada than not just saying it in Arabic. Maybe you don't understand it in Arabic. And I said,
Mm,
okay. It was different.
mhm,
I know the journey has been a very, very interesting journey. Um, a lot of my jihads come when I have a lot of born Muslims tell me to walk away from my culture, and I can't do that. I'm still very strong in my culture and very understand, I understand my culture very well. Like, I still have to teach my children my culture. And when you
mhm.
hear somebody tell you you got to turn your back on your culture, it hurts.
No, that's wrong
I
actually.
mean,
You can't leave your culture. I mean, we all have our cultures. I mean, the Sahaba was there was different Sahabas with different cultures, but like they would not leave their culture. They'd still be who they were, but they accepted Islam as long as it didn't contradict their Islam. Then they cannot leave their culture. I mean, we have brothers in England who are British, with like who dress as British people, and yet they are Muslim. You cannot, now the day you become Muslim, now you have to reject everything that is in your culture and accept what is Islamic. That is totally wrong for people to tell you that. So anyway, go ahead.
well, I think a lot of it comes with the fact that we have the dances, like powwows, what people call it, powwows, or um things where we show off our way of dancing and stuff like that. People think like, okay, well, you're a part of that. No, I just understand each and every dance and what it means, because I used to do that when I was growing up. So I had an understanding of the culture in doing that. And I said, trying to teach your children and grandchildren everything about your culture and who you are. Now I've run into a few of them that told me, you're wrong for, trying to teach your children. You should just focus on Islam. I say it's not just focusing. You have to be able to balance both of them. And I've been trying to balance really good, but sometimes you run into one that tells you, oh, you're not balancing right. So, you know what? You need to walk away from your culture a little bit more and stay focused on Islam. And that's what I've been dealing with. So sometimes it gets me to want to kind of step back even further away from Islam, because you get told you can't do that, or you can't be within your culture, and you can't just be Muslim. You can't just teach your family, but you can't, there's do's and don'ts. And I said, I can understand the do's and don'ts, but don't just push that whole, you have to stay focused on being Muslim, you know? I can't I can't do that. I have to have
So,
both.
so let's go back to when you now, okay, say that now you've reached the point where you've gone to the masjid and you've taken the shahada. How about practicing Islam now in an environment where you are the only Muslim? How would you fast? How would you pray? How would you enact that Islam itself? Because now you've made the shahada, or you're about to take the shahada, you have to enact that belief now. You have to pray, you have to fast and everything. So, was it very tough in the beginning, and is it still tough now for you after so many years to to be a Muslim, to be the only Muslim in your family, and can you just touch on that a bit, please?
Actually, the fasting and the prayers before the fasting was pretty easy because sometimes we had to do our own too. So it became normal for me to be able to fast. But now that I'm at this stage where fasting kind of went out the window with medications and stuff, so I can't really fast, but I feel bad for it, but I try. Um, and having to fast, and I do being that I have to pray too. I do have all that, I have my prayer rug, I have Quran on my phone, I listen to it, I even read it on my phone. And also a good guidance for me was the Ideal Muslimah, where I'd gotten it from a sister several years ago, where she said, take your time reading the book. And it taught a lot about um, being Muslim and how there were warriors, women had to be strong too in Islam, telling you how women also took care of the home when the men weren't there. They knew how to defend their home, everything like that. And I said, wow, that's just like my culture too, my
Yeah, that
culture
is
and religious value and that native side.
Yeah, that is very important because it's the woman who'll be raising the child, and with the knowledge of Islam and everything, and she has a very important role to play. So obviously, that is something very important. That the role of the woman, which a lot of people don't seem to realize, and Islam doesn't say that the woman doesn't have a role. The woman has a very big role to play in Islam. Most of our scholars that we have were actually, their mothers had raised them and taught them and everything. And when I'm talking of the early scholars and everything. So that's a very important thing is raised on there.
Yes, and I definitely can see that. And I said, growing up in my family, I'll just say my family itself, we were taught how to hunt and fish and do everything just like a guy. So I said, don't get me wrong, yes, I do know how to shoot guns and know how to fish, but also reading that within the Muslim women, how they were and how they had to do things, it was like, wow, it's similar to mine. And I was so much into going, oh my gosh, it is like mine. And now that I've had people introduce me to um, a lot of Muslim brothers say, hey, you should marry this brother because he's good. And I say, well, I don't think he's going to understand what life or what I was taught to do as a female. We had to be strong, independent, and we also had to do things for ourselves growing up. So now that I see it within Islam, I was like, wow, the book that I read, I actually lost it, so I had to reorder another one. I actually took time to find it, but I did find it, and I do read it at night before I go to bed. But it does help me find bits and pieces and how to act as a Muslim sister, how to be. But I think the one that captivates me the most is the fact that women had to be strong and take care of their families and everything. And I said, I think I'm doing that pretty decently now, but also being Muslim, my granddaughter actually goes to the masjid with me. And if it's iftar dinner on Fridays, she will go with me and we go pray. She learned how to pray like me, and um, she's been pretty decent about going with me to pray.
Right,
So I
right.
enjoy taking my grandchild with me. She's only 4, but she knows how to pray in Islam. She knows, Even my children know it.
Mm. So now that you are Muslim and you've been Muslim for a while, um,
So I'm
and
kind of I'm
you
kind of
you
happy
you
that I taught
right,
her a little bit more.
right. You said to me that your family, much of them have read the Quran, although they haven't become Muslim, but they actually know about Islam, which is a good thing because basically, like
I'm
if they believe
sorry,
this,
I couldn't hear what you said.
yeah, I'm saying that you've reached the point where you mentioned that
I didn't hear
your
what you
family.
said.
Yes, I'm saying that you've reached the point where you said that your family, they have read the Quran, many of them, but they haven't actually converted to Islam. But which is a good point actually, because at least they know Islam, they know where you stand, and we don't know. Making du'a for them, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala could open up their hearts as well in the future, and we just have to keep working on them and making du'a on them. And you don't know that maybe there could be a time there are some people at the age of 80, at the age of 70,
Yeah,
who are
I
actually
I make sure that if they have any questions, the door is always open for them to come to Islam. I don't close it on them. I leave it open. My cousin is actually the one that said to leave it the way it is, and slowly they'll begin to understand. And if they choose to convert or revert to Islam, she's more than happy to be supportive of them like she is with me. Um, my my cousin has been like my great support in my family. Um, Even my auntie, she was my great support after my mother passed away. Her and my uncle were my great support in life itself. That just was very helpful to me as growing up and understanding and taking things in. They'll always be my great support in being Muslim, and they will always love me. And they say they always make prayers for me. And I have friends say, "Well, we make dua for you." And I said, "Yes." I said, "I get it from both sides." They don't ask that I come back to Christianity. They just want to pray for my safety, my health, and they always want me to check in to make sure I'm doing okay. They ask a lot of questions like, "Are you safe in your community?" Being that you're the only Muslim in your community right now. I said, "Yeah, I'm pretty safe." I said, "I I have to have like some balance in it living in this crazy community, but I said I don't see a lot of phrases out there because you never know that I might get beaten up. You never know. I mean, things like that do happen. So I'm trying to be as cautious as possible. Yes, there are times where when I'm at the masjid, I do cover, and when I'm away from it, I have to uncover in this community because I don't know how they're going to react to me being Muslim right now.
mm,
And being that there is still hatred out here, I will always have to walk a fine line every day.
mm. So you have a big struggle then, basically, your Islam is a struggle basically. I'm having some
Yeah.
issues with
It
here. I think I might be
is
saying
kind of
that.
like one of those ones where you want to be able to have people understand that you're Muslim, and you want them to be cool with it, but at the same time, I don't think that a lot of it, um, a lot of people understand. There are a few people that know I'm Muslim. They're they're fine with it, but they're not sure about the rest of the community. They're not sure how the whole town is going to react to having a Muslim in town. Are they gonna be more aggressive to her? Because I know at one point where I think it was like in January when I had um, a customer step into the place I work and actually say, "Hey, you better take it easy. You never know what might happen." And I think this was like just before the inauguration and everything of Biden and Trump losing his office status. This guy was like making simple threats towards me. So, you have to go, okay, what do I do now? And I was kind of scared because now I'm living by myself. What do I do? How do I handle this? And that night, I mean, I sat down, covered, prayed hard, like, please, Allah, protect me today because I don't know what today's going to bring. And I don't know, that weekend, my kids came and got me and kept me away from a big old stupid riot that was about to happen that weekend. They took me away from it. I said, I guess Allah made a path for me to leave
Mhm.
because you never know what could have happened or what might have happened because you're different or your
And how
skin
far
color is
away?
different.
How far away is the masjid from where you are, and how much access do you get in the masjid? Do you get any support from the brothers and sisters in the masjid? Can you explain a little bit on that as well?
Um, I really don't have much support system from the masjid. They know where I live. They say it's not too bad, but it can be. There are some that are hidden races, so you run into those ones. I mean, it's 25 minutes from where I live. That's, I'd say 25, 30, I should say. And I don't have the support system from the brothers and sisters like that. So I pretty much take care of myself right now, and I do it pretty decently. I may have my younger brother living close to me, but he don't help me, so it's pretty much me by myself. And sometimes when I do get my grandkids, it's me and my grandkids, and I take care of them. And I've formed a escape plan if anything ever happens. I pretty much have an idea of what I'm supposed to do with my grandkids, and I said I don't care. I said I will go down fighting for my grandkids or myself or my family. I'm not afraid to fight for what is right. So being Muslim and being strong and trying to take care of everything by yourself, it gets really difficult.
Right. Yeah, this is I mean, you have certain countries where, I mean, with the vastness of America, I'm sure that there are some people whose masjids are maybe an hour away, 25 minutes away, or whatever, and they don't have that support, and it is very hard. And this is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthens your iman as well, because, like, you are the only one, the only one in your community, you're the only one who actually accepted Islam, and people don't understand you. So it's a big struggle. It's a very, very big struggle. And I seem to kind of, although I mean, I don't see it. I'm living in a Muslim country, so I don't actually experience it. But I can picture how it is, like, for somebody living in a non-Muslim country where there are actually very few Muslims. What about that brother who brought you into Islam? Do you get any feedback from him? Do you get any support from him?
Yeah, well, a lot of hold on, I think my phone is acting crazy. But anyways, um not having the support system, you're learning to be able to study on your own. I mean, sometimes you can't go to class. It's either because you're working or you are trying to find that time where you can go take classes. And I know the community here is pretty small for Muslims. It's not very big. Like if you live closer to Chicago or something, you have a bigger community. Here it's a little smaller. Um, and having to have some kind of support system within it, it's different, especially if you're revert. And I've dealt with being a revert the very first time taking Shahada. A lot of people wanted to help you for about 6 months to a year, and then you're on your own. And it was like, wow. I mean, I've dealt with being Muslim, covering and dealing with people that accepted you and some who didn't. I mean, I've even had experiences where I was covered and whatnot on a bus, and people called me a terrorist and said I was going to blow up the bus. Now, you deal with different types of people thinking that they think you speak Arabic because I can pass for an Egyptian. So having to sit there and all of a sudden you speak English, that scares the person that just said that you're about to blow up the bus and you have perfect English. And that freaks them out. Like, I had the guy actually run from me and stay like 10 feet away from me because he thought I was really going to hurt somebody or do something. And I wasn't. The lady who was the bus driver said, um, I'll see you next time. I'll see you shortly or whatever. And I said, yeah, I'll see you soon. And I got
Right.
off. But there are still some people who believe that if you cover your bad, or you could blow up something, or you could do something. And in this community, if I covered, people would treat me like I don't belong here or I shouldn't belong here.
Right.
When I even have my own home here, I'm still going to have to deal with the whole hate part, the or the dislike, or the fact that there's a Muslim in the community. So how do you get rid of them? You know?
Right, right, right. Sister, what I'm doing at the moment, maybe you can see scrolling on the what's the name at the bottom here. I was supposed to make this announcement earlier, but I didn't make this announcement. I'm offering for our brothers and sisters who want to go into blogging and who want to go into having their own website and everything. I've got about three websites that I'm giving away for free for people who want to host their own works that they're doing in Islam. And especially, I see sisters' voices need to be heard more. Sisters, like, there's a lot of questions that have been asked to the men, and we have to give an answer to something that is that concerns a sister. So I'm trying to encourage brothers and sisters to get into blogging, to get into having their own website. So as I've been writing down at the bottom there that, like, I bought a package recently, and there's plenty of there's nine in there, and I won't be using those nine websites. So I'm organizing a contest where, like, people can go to my blog and they can read my content in there, and then once they've read my content, then they can actually post on my Twitter what they like the most, and then once they've posted on my Twitter, those who want to go into blogging, or those who are already writers but cannot pay WordPress $30 a month with all the add-ons and everything, and it comes to $50. And what they can do is, after they've read my articles, they post their four favorite articles of theirs, and then what they do is they post an article that they have written to show me that they have the power of writing, they have the ability of writing about Islam. It has to be people who are educated and knowledgeable about Islam. And then round about August time, July, August time, I'll be offering number three, free websites that you have for life. You don't have to pay for hosting or whatever. So if you know brothers and sisters who maybe as reverts even who've come into Islam and have got the knowledge and love to write and, like, are looking for a platform where they can put their work and everything, then, like, they can just, like, go to my blog and my blog, which is crucifyhim.com, and then from there they can read my articles and then add theirs. And I'm ready, alhamdulillah, to give away three websites with lifetime hosting for free, and that would encourage the brothers and sisters, and especially, like I said, sisters' voices need to be heard. A lot of times people ask us questions about Aisha radiallahu anha, and I think that sometimes it would be better coming from a sister herself, about marriage, about things like that. And we don't get much of this. So if there are sisters out there, there are sisters who, like, want to go into blogging, and, like, they're at home, they have their children to look after, and, like, they want to give the sisters' point of view, even the brothers as well. So if they can take part in this contest, I want to make it fair. So, like, instead of just giving away or whatever, if I can organize a contest and you know, the brothers and sisters take part in that contest. Oops, I seem to have lost the sister now. Yeah. Well, anyway, so by the time the sister comes back, so for those of you who want to take part in this event, you just have to follow the instructions that I put there, and these instructions, then you will be you will between now and then the times that I have my lectures and everything, and some of my lectures, some of my podcasts will be posted in my blog as well, and then you could just like pick the four that you love the most. Some of them were my assignments that I done when I was doing my course, and then hopefully, inshallah, we will get brothers and sisters who can win their own free free website, even as a blog or as a website itself. I think the sister's back. You had a little problem there, sister. Yeah, you got disconnected. So
Yeah, my data decided it wanted to shut off, and I don't know why.
right, okay. Anyway, sister, we've reached the point now. I think 1 hour is of your time. I've taken a bit of your time to explain this now. Anyway, I kind of I'm very happy actually to have learned from you, and I thank you a lot for having come to my podcast. And inshallah, that Allah makes things easier for you. Allah clears the stripes that you're going through and everything. And like even yourself, like if you want to take, if you want to have a blog of your own, if you want to kind of like have a website where you can put out the sister's voice or whatever, you can get in touch with me and I can, I'd be more than happy to offer you this free website. Otherwise, you can pass the message on to others who haven't seen the podcast, and I'll leave the final words to you if you want to add some more to what you were saying, and then we can probably conclude from there because we're getting on to the 1 hour mark, and I don't want to kind of make it difficult for you.
No, you're absolutely fine. I'm actually glad that I'm able to put my voice out there and let everybody know that there are still some Native American Muslims out here. It's just where some of us lose touch with the culture or the whole aspect of family. So there are some out here that you will find, and I think that other tribes do have other Muslims in there, so that are Native American. So it's really, really difficult to find, but I did find several. I know there's a I think it's called Turtle Island Muslims, and I think that's up in North Dakota. There are several Muslims there that are Native American. Some of them live, some of them are not on the reservation. So there's a lot you will learn about sisters and brothers that are Native American. And I think so far I'm the only one in my tribe, so I guess it's not too bad being the only one. But there
Mhm.
are several out here. It's just it takes time to find because a lot of them did change their names. I couldn't change my name. I didn't change it to Mariam. I just kept Valerie, not just for family's sake, but also my children's sake because I still have younger children and I still have a younger daughter that still knows me as my name that was given to me by my grandmother. So I keep it. It's the reason why I keep Valerie.
Uh-huh.
So
Right.
you'll find us out here. It's just gonna take time.
Yeah. Um, what I was going to say is that I read a document very, very long time ago, and I'd never known that before. That the actual Native Americans, they were Muslims amongst the Native Americans. I think you remember he mentioned that in the beginning that the first when the colonizers were coming to America. I had read a document that when they signed the treaty or whatever on the Delaware River, I think, and there was somebody with the name Muhammad bin Abdullah, who was one of the chiefs of the tribes, and that really kind of made me. I was very amazed. I thought, mashallah, subhanallah, from that time there were Muslims there in America, but they were not recognized. I'm sure you know much more about it. I'm sure you know much more of your history, and maybe some other time I can invite you on again where you can tell us a bit more of the history. You can tell us a bit more of the culture. I have enjoyed them. Talking to you about it and everything. And if you do know more of uh, Native Americans, if you can, like, let them know, and I'll be more than happy to interview them on my podcast. I'd
Sure,
like
I
to say,
definitely can do that.
yeah, I'd like to say Jazakallah khair, and have a nice Ramadan of whatever is left of it. And inshallah, maybe after Eid, we can organize something else, and maybe on a different topic. Now we know how you came to Islam, and we know a bit about the Native American religion. So maybe after Eid, we can organize something else, if that's okay by you.
Yes, that would be fine.
Okay, so Jazakallah khair, and we make dua, inshallah, that you are our brothers and sisters in Islam, and, like, we make dua for all of you, that everything goes easy for you. So um, I just have to say Jazakallah khair, and inshallah Allah will fill it up, and Allah will reward you on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah for the strife that you're going through here. So Allah will reward you, inshallah.
I mean, and I will keep in contact with you and let you know if I find any more for you to talk to.
Inshallah, Jazakallah khair, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Oh, wa alaikum salam.